we started a movement in the food business, and now we have 50 companies that compete with us and that are trying to do what we did, maybe even a little bit better. So if my mission statement is as broad as to change the way the world eats, and now there are 50 companies providing products for people to make healthy eating, more enjoyable and maybe, less painful and improve their health. Hey, I win. My mission statement had nothing to do with money. It had to do with wanting to change the way the world eats.
Exactly.
So that's kind of I think the nature of some of the businesses that are quite successful. You follow the path toward what it is you are intending, the mark you're intending to make on the world, shall we say. And I think if you do that and you persevere, I think the money comes at some point.
Welcome to I Think I Can podcast. My name is Luella Young. I am a woman who believes that we, like wine, get better with age. Age brings us wisdom, intuition, and a level of sophistication that is beyond the reach of youth. I am here to tell you that living a luxuriously rich and fulfilling life is in your reach. I Think I Can podcast will teach you to think differently in order to get different results. Allow me to show you how to do life effortlessly. This podcast is for the woman who is tired of playing by the rules of society, community, religion, parents, and partners. I Think I Can is all about becoming brave, authentic, purposeful, and strong. Listen weekly and you will find yourself living a life you could have only once dreamed of. Thoughts drive our physiology, so channel your thoughts with me into a life truly worth living. Enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to I Think I Can podcast. Today, I am thrilled beyond belief to have Mark Sisson as my guest. Now, I think most of you know who Mark is, but for those of you who've been living in a cave, Mark is a former elite endurance athlete who has learned to fall in love with health and research, but he is the pioneer in ancestral health. But I think you may recognize his name from the blog, Mark's Daily Apple, which he started way back in 2006, and he's still doing today. He's also the author of several best-selling books, all of which I have read, which is Primal Blueprint, the Keto Reset Diet, and his most recent one, 2 Meals a Day, as well as I have the Keto Reset cookbook as well, which is very good. But most recently, well, not so recently, but you may recognize Primal Kitchen foods. You might have seen some of those foods on your health food store and maybe your local grocery store. But he is the founder of Primal Kitchen Foods, but now recently is the founder of Peluva Footwear, which is involved in both the designing and marketing of stylish and comfortable minimalist shoes. So welcome. What an intro.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for having me, Luella.
Okay. Well, okay. So where to begin, man? I got lots of questions. But the number one thing, I mean, because I think you're most well known for Mark's Daily Apple. Like, where did your love for, like, did you always have a love for writing? Because obviously you're good at it.
Thank you. No, I always hated writing.
Okay.
So right off before we started this podcast, you mentioned about passion coming from pain points.
Yeah.
I've been good at writing, but I don't like it. It's one of those things that I procrastinate as much as I can before I have to sit down and get it cranked out. But I have a background in endurance sports, which is really about managing discomfort.
Yeah.
You know, when you train for marathons, you train for long distance, you train for triathlons, your whole life is managing discomfort. How much am I willing to be uncomfortable to get through this workout so that at the other end, I'm better adapted, I'm better prepared, I'm you know, whatever the goal is.
Yeah.
So I think that the discipline there has helped. I mean, I was interested in fitness at a very early age, and that's what got me into running. And I was pre-med in college. I got a degree in biology. I had a strong interest in evolutionary biology. So those sort of all came together when I started my blog in 2006. And again, get that I was already old when I started my blog in 2006. I already had a career in a couple of different fields of endeavor, you know, and I was just going to write about stuff that I knew that had to do with diet and health and exercise. And then the blog became a nice platform to not just espouse my beliefs and maybe help some people, but also as the formation of ideas that would be incorporated into books that I would write later on. And ultimately, it became the foundation and the platform for launching Primal Kitchen, the food company.
Okay, so what was your business when you started the blog then?
I was in supplements. So as a former athlete, I was very much interested in how I could improve performance. I've been chasing performance my whole life. Some of it was through learning how to eat right and how to fuel the body. But part of it was really digging deeply into natural ways in which we could enhance recovery from the hard training. And this was in the early days of performance-enhancing drugs that were coming on the scene. And so I wanted some alternative to taking steroids or taking EPO or some of these other medicines that athletes were taking to cheat the system. So I wanted to come up with, I started investigating ways in which we could use vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytonutrients, things like that, to perhaps improve recovery times and let you get back out on the road and beat yourself up again sooner.
Yeah, exactly. Well, anybody just needs to read your blog to kind of find out, you know, how you came to the realization that, you know, beating up your body day after day is in fact not the way to go about life. But, you know, I've always been a lover of movement too, Mark. And like to me, it's easy. Like not every day, but like it makes me feel good. Like even before, you know, recording here, I don't know. It was just like a long morning of work, you know, into the afternoon. And I had lunch, but it was like sort of like a headache, a bit of I felt heavy in my head. And then, you know, I went for this bike ride and like, you know, coming back, I was like, oh yeah, I had that headache, you know, and it was just like, I don't, you know, I almost wish people would experience, you know, movement in that way that I think, you know, you and I naturally have discovered. But in my mind, I'm always kind of curious, like, why do some other people not have that?
Well, I was one that didn't have it from the other side of the equation, which was because I was a performance athlete and my pursuit of movement required that I really dig deep every day. It was not fun. When I retired from competition and backed off and realized that it was not serving me as a human being to beat myself up that much, I started to appreciate the concept of play. And so now, I walk a lot. I like to walk. I didn't used to like to walk when I was a runner because it was a waste of time. I could be running and I should be running. And, so I think there's a mindset that accompanies these sorts of small goals you have. And so when I shifted away from competition and I said, I don't want to ever manage discomfort as a rule of thumb on a daily basis anymore. What I want to do is I want to enjoy movement. I want to enjoy play. I want to have fun. And so I chose pursuits that were more fun. And so I do stand-up paddling now. I ride a fat bike on the sand in the beach. It's it's work, but I like it. It's fun. It's a different kind of work and a different kind of fun. I was in Europe this summer for 4 months, and I walked every single day. I walked a minimum of 5 miles and up to 14 miles a day.
Yeah.
I was trying out my new shoes. I was sort of wear testing these new shoes, and I found that the nature of the shoes that we've created, I don't want to get into that right now, but the nature of the shoes we created compelled me to want to walk. I felt like walking. I felt like I was enjoying the movement of the small muscles of my feet and feeling the ground underneath me. So so you ask, well, why do some people not have that? Well, people who are normally or historically inactive tend to be inactive just as out of habit, right? And it's difficult to kind of get that ball rolling and get that habit rehabituated into one of being willing to move on a regular basis. And that's one of the challenges that I've always had as an educator is I know that this stuff works. Yeah. I just got to sort of convince you not to do it, but to want to do it.
Yeah. You just made me think too. It's, I guess with any sort of behavior change, and because I like the way I grew up in a big family on a farm, like I remember my mom just always kicking all the kids out of the house, probably for her insanity. But we were forced to move. We were forced to play. And I remember you talking about that too. It's sort of like, what did you do as a young bloke? You jumped on your bike and off you went for hours.
For the day. Yeah. For the whole day. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not that our parents didn't care about us. They just knew that, we would figure it out. But one thing I am lacking now is sitting down to read is still like, even though I get so much pleasure out of the information I take in, like to say that, oh, my love is just curling, up with a book. I mean, I much more walk and listen. Then I feel I get best of both worlds. But so I guess it does make sense. It's sort of whatever.
So wait a minute, are you suggesting that you feel like reading a book is decadent and you should be doing something else? Or? Okay.
No. I feel it's sort of like I almost feel guilty because I'm not moving. Like it's almost
same thing. Yeah. It's when I say it's decadent, it's like
right.
It's like a pleasure that you're taking on, but you should be doing something else.
Yeah. The should be's come in. Yeah.
And we could talk about a lot of people I know will listen to podcasts while they're walking or listen to books on tape while they're walking. Great, I guess, except that I don't almost never listen to something when I'm walking. I want to be in the moment while I'm out there. And then when I'm taking in information, I prefer to read. I think reading is a order of magnitude more easier to absorb when you are fully engrossed in the book, in the words, and taking them in, versus listening to them. And maybe if you're out on a hike or something like that, you miss a couple of the nuances of what's being said because you're distracted by whatever. So anyway, it's just
no, for sure. It's very true. And what was I going to say? Which makes me think about, I know one of your daily routines, if that's still true, depending on when that YouTube, like what I was watching the other day is, or reading was, you do crossword puzzles every morning.
So I do a lot of that stuff every morning. I do about a half an hour of brain work. There's a new thing. I do crossword puzzles every day. I do the New York Times crossword puzzle. I do some Ken-Kens and Sudokus. I'm very, very fast at those, so that I buzz through those. A friend of mine and I just started. Have you heard of Wordle?
No.
Word game. All right. So Wordle is the new big word game. New York Times bought it a couple of about a year ago. But Wordle is just one word guessing game. Well, my buddies and I are pretty good at that, and so now there's another game called Quordle. That's 4 of them that you have to guess at the same time. And then there's one called Set a Quordle, which is 16 of them, and you have to get them in order. And if you're a Wordle, if your listeners are familiar with Wordle, once you get to Quordle and once you get to Set a Quordle, it's pretty abominable, I should say. And my friend and I created a game where we score each other every day. We sort of,
Oh, wow.
however many guesses it gets to fill it in. So that's the first thing I do when I wake up. My buddy happens to be a late. He stays up late at night, and all of these puzzles flip over at midnight East Coast time. And so right after midnight, he's doing them and getting ready for me. So I wake up in the morning. There in my texts are his scores that I have to like
wow
get onto. Anyway, I spend about a half an hour doing that sort of deep logic mind game stuff. And I love it. It's not tiring. It's if I said, well, I go for a hard 10K run every morning, I'd say, well, there's a lot of discipline there.
Mm-hmm.
Quite a bit less discipline to sit down and have a cup of coffee and do some puzzles, but I do it for my brain.
Well, yeah, like for your body, like if that kind of brings us to the topic of longevity. It's definitely not just physical, and I know that's something that I really want to start incorporating, every day as well, because and I know the research behind, staving away from Alzheimer's and dementia and all those.
It's horrible. Pretty scary.
Yeah.
Pretty scary out there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and even like in terms of movements, you've probably heard the same thing, some of the better ones are the mind, eye-hand coordination ones like tennis and ping pong and things like that, table tennis. And it's something worth.
Yeah. And the balance ones are.
Oh, similar. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why I do the stand-up paddling. It's very, balanced oriented that way. I used to have a slack line in my backyard. I live in a condo now, so I don't have one. But when I lived in Malibu for years, I had a slack line. You know what that is? Like a tightrope that you walk.
Oh my gosh, you did that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Holy.
Yeah. So
okay.
These are all sort of like little things that you can do, little tricks. I guess the kids call them hacks these days. You sort of train your mind to be A, more playful, B, more organized, C, more logical in its thinking, and then probably more creative, and certainly enhance your balance.
Yeah. And like, again, in terms of keeps you young, keeps you on your toes, keeps your memory sharp. I mean, all the great benefits of it, which, like, I'm always a big advocate in terms of small things often. And I think, you could probably list off, I don't know how many things you do every day that, over the course of many, many decades has allowed you to have the vibrancy that you have right now.
I mean, I think if what you're getting at is, the concept of a routine.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big believer in. So I feel like a lot of my success has less to do with discipline and more to do with routine. It's the discipline part of it is I think discipline's kind of a bad word. I think, again, I like habituation, I like adaptation, I like acclimation, and I like the concept of a routine. So if something that you're doing can fit into a routine, it becomes easier, and you don't have to think about it. You just do it.
Right. Yeah. It gets housed in your subconscious, and therefore you don't even have to think about it. Like the whole thing about atomic habits and everything. You're right. With the balance of changing things up too, like you said, like, I mean, that's keeping the mind agile, like doing challenging yourself with the crossword puzzles or whatever that, like Scrabble or whatever you want to, the one you mentioned there, is also important. Yeah. So let's, like, in terms, I want to talk a little bit about business, and because you call yourself an entrepreneur. Would you say you've always been business minded, like right out of the gate? Like what at 18, what was going through your mind at 18?
Well, at 12, I had a full-time job mowing lawns, 40 hours a week in the summer.
Oh my God.
So I made big money in those days. To be 12 years old and to have a job with a paycheck was pretty cool.
No kidding.
From there, I got a job with somebody else painting houses. I realized I didn't like working for somebody else. So the summer after I painted houses for somebody else, I had taught myself how to paint houses. I was pretty agile. I could monkey up and down the ladder all day long. So I started making a lot of money as a teenager, ages of 14, 15, 16, 17, all through college. And then 3 years after college, I was basically a painting contractor. And I was making $100,000 a year in 1979 and 1980. Just me making, bidding houses. And I literally worked more than 40 hours a week in hard physical labor. It was always a game to me, like how fast can I paint this house, and make more money per hour. So it was always that kind of Easter egg hunt mentality, like how many of these eggs can I find, and then I'd go home and run 15 miles because I was a runner in those days. So it was a really, but I had a good enough living doing that I was able to travel around the world and race in international competition and do all those things.
Yeah.
And then after I retired from competition, I started a frozen yogurt shop in Palo Alto in 1981, back in the early days of frozen yogurt. I've had a restaurant. I was a personal trainer for a long time. I wrote my first book in 1982, the Runner's World Triathlon Training Book. So I've always had this entrepreneurial drive that, but for a few short, brief, forays into working for somebody else, which always proved that I don't like working for somebody.
Yeah, exactly.
I'd come back and start another business. So I started my supplement business in 1996. Okay. And doing these sort of performance recovery supplements, and I had a nice business. It did very well. It was a direct response business. It was direct to consumer. They call it D2C now, but and I had it was a 1-800 number that you would call into my call center, and they would take the order before the days of internet. And then I had a nice model working on television where I was doing quite well. But when the model stopped working, it ceased working in 2004 because of a number of things. There were too many infomercials on the air. There were already now 300 channels on Dish Direct. Back when I started, there was ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and then maybe a local cable access, right? And then in the US, there were 300 stations when you had Dish and Direct. So you had that, you had the internet coming on, so now people were buying on the internet. So I had to kind of pivot massively in how I marketed my products, and that's how I started Mark's Daily Apple. I was selling my supplements on the back end of a blog that I was writing.
Okay, yeah. So when do you where would you say things really took off for you as an entrepreneur? Because I think if I'm listening, it's sort of like I'm kind of hearing doing the same thing over and over, didn't improve the situation, right? Like you had to have like a few different lessons to say that, hey, you know what? I don't like working for anybody. I think I need to work for myself. But like, would you say, that old adage, like, more the same doesn't give you, the same results, or the whole idea of work harder?
Yeah, I've never been a fan of that concept of work harder. And I see, these Gary V, who's great guy. And I don't know if you know who he is. He's a internet sort of a business, guy and coach. You got to grind, you got to work hard. You got to, I'm like, no, I wanted to work smarter. And I've given talks in the past just about on the concept of pivoting. Like my life has been about pivots.
Yeah.
And so, I would say, to young people looking to start a business, absolutely pick a great business, one that you really believe in, one you think is a good business, not that has big potential. Aim high, go for it, but have no attachment to the outcome. I mean, do what it takes to make sure that you maximize the opportunity. But if somewhere down the line it looks like that opportunity is not what you thought it would be, or is not yielding the results, take a look at what other opportunities are presenting themselves. It may be, again, that old adage, one door closes and two more open. Be aware of what's going on around you. Be willing to make adjustments. Some people are so stuck in their business plan. Like, dude, I wrote this business plan. It took me 6 months to come up with this business plan. I got this budget, and and then they get into the nitty gritty, and all of a sudden they realize the business plan is not working according to plan. And people get stuck in trying to fix it and trying to, we can make this work. I know we can make this work. And this is what happened to me with Mark's Daily Apple in the supplement business. I had a great business in supplements. I could have retired off the supplement business, but it wasn't growing the way I felt I wanted to. And I just realized, wait a minute, I'm talking about food and eating right, and cutting back on sugars and industrial seed oils, and buying natural food. And I'm literally talking about not taking supplements.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't I start thinking about making food products that address the exact market that I'm creating here, the people that are listening to what I'm writing about, how to make your own mayonnaise, how to make your own salad dressing, how to make your own ketchup. And we realized pretty early on that most people don't want to make their own ketchup, and they'd be willing to pay a lot of money for somebody who made exactly what I was talking about, and made it with healthy ingredients, healthful ingredients, avoided all of the nasty stuff, and made it convenient. So that's really the genesis of Primal Kitchen.
Yeah, which is wonderful. Biggest fan of just your mayo, just the simple things, your mayo and the very little I use ketchup, but when I do, it's like, it's amazing how good it tastes without the sugar, Yeah,
well, it's amazing to me that problem was recognized by moms across the U.S. and probably Canada 15 years ago. High fructose corn syrup, we don't want to feed it to our kids. And nobody had solved the problem. A couple of companies had tried, and they solved, the no sugar thing, but then the product didn't taste very good. And if you're going to, the whole reason to use ketchup is it tastes good, and you want to put it on whatever it is you bring it on.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you think of it like that, though, like when you think about like your business trajectory, I mean, to me, it seems like if you follow your passion and you really know your why, you will get there. You don't know, like, you're not expecting all the different turns and like you say, that the pivoting that needs to be done. But essentially, like, I don't know if you agree with me. Like, I mean, you said, since a young age, you've always been passionate about health and movement and the importance of that. You've always had an interest in it. And look where you are now. Like, I mean, it's like the Primal Kitchen, the supplements. I mean, the cookbooks that you wrote, and I mean,
look, there's a body of work that I've created, and in retrospect, in hindsight, all the dots connect perfectly. At the time, going forward, you could never predict, what the next move is going to be. Did I sit there when I was 18 years old and said to myself, one day I want to be the mayonnaise king of Malibu? No, but that's sort of what transpired, and I'm happy with it and proud of it, and it came from a pursuit. I mean, look, I had a mission to change the way the world eats.
See, that's
I started with the blog, and then the books were there to educate and help people understand the good ways to eat, the best ways to eat, and then the food. And the food company provided alternative sauces and dressings and toppings, things that you put on food to make it taste better. But historically, we're not that good for you. And now there was an opportunity to put something on your salad or put something on your steak that was actually better than even not putting something else on. So that was changing the way the world eats. And, the mission statement is bigger than me, and it's bigger than making money, because what happened was we started a movement in the food business, and now we have 50 companies that compete with us and that are trying to do what we did, maybe even a little bit better. So if my mission statement is as broad as to change the way the world eats, and now there are 50 companies providing products for people to make healthy eating, more enjoyable and maybe, less painful and improve their health. Hey, I win. My mission statement had nothing to do with money. It had to do with wanting to change the way the world eats.
Exactly.
So that's kind of I think the nature of some of the businesses that are quite successful. You follow the path toward what it is you are intending, the mark you're intending to make on the world, shall we say. And I think if you do that and you persevere, I think the money comes at some point.
Exactly. No, thanks for summing that up, because that's what I see in your work, from 30,000 feet above is there's something to do with helping community, helping individuals out of pain. Your mission is to help others. I don't care what anybody comes up with, right? Like it doesn't matter what it is. If you got perseverance, and if that's what you're focused on, instead of how am I going to get it, or how much money I'm going to make while doing it, then that's where people go wrong, I think. Yeah. So yeah, well put. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is, like you talked about how many hours of work you did, and when someone is straight into their passion, it doesn't even seem like work. But how about, like, in terms of relationships? So, I mean, how long have you been married?
Been married 32 years. So I've been with my wife 34 years.
Congrats.
We have 2 kids. Yeah, thanks. And this is one of the other things that I think a lot of the modern business, the online quick hit business coaches fail to sort of comprehend. You got to live your life. You can't just put your life off until the day that you are, wealthy, or until the day that you have X millions of dollars in the bank. You got to live your life the whole time. And so I was very clear that, and again, this is that I didn't want to working harder is one thing, and then just working stupid is another, which is, you see a lot of these entrepreneurs that stay at the office until 10 o'clock at night and then come home and then, get up in the morning, go back to the office at 7. I'm like, what's going on? What are you actually accomplishing in all of that time? So I really, I spent a lot of time with my kids as they were growing up. So from the time they were born. So, I started businesses. I was deep in the trenches of running the businesses, but I went to every, Little League practice. I coached Little League. I reffed soccer. I went to every single soccer game. Wow. And that's one of the things that my kids, who are 31 and 28 now, will always remind me is about the time I spent with them, not the crap that I bought them, or not not even the great vacations that we were able to afford. It was, Dad, you remember when we went boogie boarding? You taught us how to boogie board in the deep surf and in Malibu, or you taught me how to throw a football or a baseball, or we went rollerblading. And these are the things that I see some entrepreneurs who missed that part of their kids. And now, after the divorce and after now they're in their second families and they're doing it over again. Well, God bless them for doing that. But I just always wanted to have the experience of having my family around me. And one of the things that arises from that is that my kids are both, I've set them up with comfortably, shall we say?
Mm-hmm.
Not fu comfortably, but comfortably. And people say, well, aren't you worried about that and taking any drive away? And like, well, not at all. But my kids watched me struggle to make the payments on the rent or, pay for food. They saw what it looked like when I started a business at the age of 42 with no money in the bank and no visible means of income. It's a scary thing. So they understand, what it took. It didn't just magically appear one day, right? It took years and years and years. Now, to be honest, I was so confident in my abilities that when I started the business, within 3 years, I was probably making $500,000 a year. And then it took off from there. So it wasn't like we were ever really, really, really struggling, but I put everything back into the business and, so my kids today go, Jesus, Dad. I mean, that was, it was like to be there. My son was 3 when it started. My daughter was 6. They were very aware of what was going on. And, we had to move a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, it makes for a good story, but it's not one, it's not one that the kids are spoiled because, they have access to money and there's generational wealth now.
Yeah, exactly. No, and I think, if I were to throw it on you then and say, well, where did you get your confidence? Because again, I think so much of this, this business success that, we see people have or do not have has to do with the belief in themselves. And like I say, the passion to do good, for the world. Yeah. I think with those two things, you can do anything. So was it like your parents that maybe, would you say, allowed like kind of, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, look, I grew up poor in a fishing village in Maine. And it's the old, it's that old saying, we were poor, we just didn't know it. Right?
Yeah.
My father was a painter, not a house painter. He was a fine artist, and he literally sold paintings to support the family. He had a wife and 4 children. I had 3 siblings. And he was very industrious. And when the paintings weren't doing as well, he made jewelry out of silver and stones.
Wow.
And he played jazz piano in a club. And so this fishing village became a tourist point in the summer. So between, whether, like June, July, August, maybe part of September, the, New Yorkers and Bostonians would come up and they'd have summer houses there, and there'd be a lot of partying and there'd be a couple of nightclubs. So my dad played piano in a nightclub. I mean, he was always doing something to earn some money. And I saw that. Plus he had his painting studio was on the back part of our house. So I got early on, you don't literally get dressed up and go to work. You just walk down the end of the hall and do your work in a different room. And that's kind of what I grew up knowing, which has served me quite well. I've never gone to an office other than when I worked for somebody else. So, but even again, when I say I mowed lawns when I was 12, I was pretty creative. My sister and I would make Christmas wreaths, for instance, around the holidays. We would sell them door to door. And again, we're like 11, 12, 13 years old making $150 back in 1964 and 65. I would stay home from school on a snow day and make $80 shoveling snow. So I got this sort of sense of if you pick the right kind of thing and occupation, and if you're creative, there's a reward in it for you. And that's kind of what led me down that path. And I think there's been an element of art and creativity in everything I've done, whether it was painting houses, because I was very good at prescribing colors for repainting houses and things like that. Long-winded answer. Yeah, I got a lot from my father and his industriousness and his creativity.
Well, and yeah, like you say, and you have a love for music.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and there it is again, whether it's your cooking, your creations, your recipes, or the way you show it in music. I'm curious, when did you start? I know you love playing drums. When did you start that?
I started that 2 years ago.
That's
Um,
it.
that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was another one of those mind head game things with syncopation and rhythm and holding a beat.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I played saxophone, clarinet, flute when I was very, very young, but I didn't really do any music. I love music. I mean, I would have been a great, I think, the new sort of DJ concept. If I could go back and pick a creative pursuit
Mm.
when it was in its infancy, it probably would have been DJing, because I love music and I have a lot of fun with it. But yeah, the drums are just something I just decided one day about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, just before COVID. I just like, yeah, let's do this. So.
Yeah, no, like that's sort of like, I don't think I've ever mentioned this before, but that is kind of like a secret passion of mine. I mean, there's something about like, you know, that beat that just,
Yeah.
you lose yourself.
Well, and now I have electronic drums. I have electronic drum kit, and so I can put on headphones. I can Bluetooth my iPhone, Spotify, or Tidal, or any of the music services, and just blast as loud as I want to in my head, and nobody can hear me in any part of the house or below, because I live in a condo. So I'm like wailing away and blasting away, and yeah, it's a real release. It's a nice release for me.
Jeez, that's great. Well, okay. So, like one thing I just want you to touch on briefly, like I just feel like if people want to know about health, like I mean, just go to your blog, go to your books. I don't really want to the purpose for me is just connecting with you today is more about the relationships that we talked about, like learned behavior, your passion and your mission and things like that. But I want you to just speak briefly, because I know you practice this and I'm a strong believer in it, as well as like the whole idea of hormesis. And why do you feel it's good to stress the body?
Well, it's good to stress the body certain amounts, but not too much, and really identifying the fine line there. So, for instance, I say recently, but I've been doing cold plunges for, I'm going to say 7 years now. And I started in my house when I had a house in Malibu. I started with an unheated pool in the wintertime. So it would be down into the high 40s, low 50s. Jeez. And I just walk out at night and just walk right into the pool and hang out there for a couple of minutes. And then we had a jacuzzi right next to it. So my wife would join me for the jacuzzi part. Then we go to bed. It was a great way to finish the evening. But I started doing it because I felt like I was, I've been a triathlete, and I spent 3 years really swimming in water that I found unpalatable.
Right.
I even found that an 80-degree public pool was just too cold for me. I hated getting in. I hated the concept of it. So I decided in this Malibu thing, I decided I needed to fix my brain about that. And I needed to address that unseated ridiculousness of the not the fear of cold water, but the real distaste for cold water. So it became a trick of just walking into the water and just thinking to myself, it's not good or bad, it's just sensation. It's not good or bad, it's just a sensation. And that's kind of how I coach people through cold plunges now. But anyway, back to the hormesis thing. So I do some cold plunging now, and I like it. I used to do it. I'm just competitive, and I used to do it for longer periods of time. And then I realized sometimes that's too much of a stress.
Yeah.
And sometimes, a little bit of something is good, and then too much of it can be fairly harmful. So I've had a couple of times where I've gotten, the chills or a cold from doing this
Mm.
hormetic event too long just because I'm trying to prove a point to myself or to somebody else. So the hormesis is basically the idea that you'll undergo a brief stress that the body will then say, oh, wow, if this guy's going to do this again, we better shore up the immune system. We better decrease some of the inflammation that's currently going on. And so there's a body of work that would say that cold plunging, for instance, or cryotherapy has some beneficial effects. But, hormesis can also be something like, it could be a sauna because you can do heat shock therapy, heat shock proteins. But also, a 36-hour fast is a form of hormesis. And it sort of indicates your body that maybe it's time to make some repairs and do some minor damage control that would otherwise not be prompted to do if you were eating enough calories on a regular basis every couple of hours, which most people do all day long.
Right. Okay. So like either alternate day fasts or intermittent fasting is something that you practice.
I mostly do what I call a compressed eating window. So I just, that doesn't even fit into any of what I would consider a hormetic stressor or any of this thing. It's just, it's a comfortable way of eating when you understand that, number one, all the good stuff happens in the body when you're not eating.
Mm-hmm.
Not much good happens when you're eating, other than the gustatory pleasure. But, the burning of fat, the building of muscle, all this stuff sort of happens when you're not eating, the repairing of damaged tissues. Now, I try to go, 18 hours without eating. So I might go from 1 o'clock in the afternoon and have my last meal at 7:30. And then, so I eat, that's hence the book that I wrote called 2 Meals a Day.
Yeah.
And the notion here is that, the main notion is we just eat too much food. Humans, Americans and Canadians and whatever else in the developed world, we eat too much food. And the amount of food that you think you need is so much less than what you're currently consuming. Not you personally, Luella, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. And
so, I have people, kind of do the math, and I'm like, I think the average American consumes like 4,000 calories a day. And on a good day, I might average 2,200 or 2,300, and I'm an active guy and lift weights and I maintain muscle mass. But it's how you eat it. It's the amount of protein that you consume. It's the quality of the fats. It's the quality of the carbohydrates, and typically for my way of thinking, the fewer processed carbs you can eat in a lifetime, the longer you're going to live. So you come down to a list that's basically meat, fish, fowl, eggs, nuts, seeds, vegetables, a little bit of fruit, maybe some starchy tubers, and then you just you put the sauces on them. It's the methods of preparation that make it so interesting, the herbs, the spices, and things like that.
Yeah, simplifying life. And you must have seen that as well in Europe after spending that many, like, what is your like, what hit you hard when you were there, when you looked at lifestyle?
So here's my thing about Europe, which always fascinates me. People, and I talk to people who, oh my God, I went to Europe. I was there, 12 days. I gained 10 pounds. I'm like, dude, I was in Europe for 4 months. I ate well.
Yes.
Every single day. And I lost 4 pounds. I'm like, how? Like, I worked too hard to keep the weight on.
Right.
And, I guess it was because I was walking a lot, which is, again, a great way to kind of, do that. But also the quality of the food.
Exactly.
Is so, it's so demonstrably better there that you don't have the issues with inflammation and retaining of water and the frankenfats, these industrial seed oils that we consume in this country that affect everything from your insulin sensitivity to the function of the membranes on your cells. I mean, it's insidious how these industrial seed oils that we consume here, despite our best efforts to exercise a lot and cut calories, if you don't pay attention to the quality of food, you're still going to miss out on the benefits.
Yeah, like, and it's just sort of like enjoying food too. Like, didn't you find that it's just the culture of eating? Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like I was in visiting my brother in Italy and spent a lot of time in Tuscany. And I mean, as all Italians do, you know, you're eating at 7:30, 8 o'clock, when most Northern European countries, you know, the same. So um, you know, that whole thing about going to bed, you know, or not eating 3 hours before, like I think so much of it is your perception of, like you said, when you stepped into the cold plunge, this is neither good nor bad. It's just a sensation. And I think it's always the same in foods up to a certain extent. Like, yeah, it's like, okay, Cheetos are neither good or bad. It's how I'm perceiving it. It's not that, but it's like, you know, I'm not going to get so much into the weeds with all this stuff. It's sort of like I'm enjoying, I'm laughing, and I don't know, I just found everything about it. Like, you're not walking around with, you know, big gulps or huge, like the idea of drinking coffee while you're moving is a whole like a weird concept for them as well, right? Like, you're sitting down and you're enjoying that espresso, you know, at a cafe, right? And it's just like, it's sharing conversation while you're having the espresso, and maybe, heaven forbid, you're actually going to have one of the delicious pastries that goes along with it. Well, there's something that we must be missing in all this, like, as Americans, because we're North Americans, because, you know, we don't see the obesity there, and they're eating a hell of a lot of pasta and they're enjoying their croissants. You know, but again, I think it's the quality of food, because what I also saw there is that the inflation is not being felt like we're feeling it here. And I think that's mainly because, at least for a Canadian, you know, just north of North Dakota, like everything, I mean, I'm looking at my produce that's wrapped in a ton of cellophane, and it says, you know, product of California or product of, you know, Mexico. Like, I mean, like, no kidding. Like, how can that quality be the same as your, you know, getting it next door your farm?
No, we were in France for 3 of the months that we were in Europe, and we ate at home a lot. And, you know, we shopped every day. So it wasn't like you go to the grocery store, you go to, you know, Costco or a big box store and buy enough for 3 weeks. We literally shopped, walked on our way home, you know, picked out the produce, walked home with enough to make, you know, whatever it was we are going to have that night. And then ran out of it, and then had to do it again the next day, but it was fresh. And, you know, just things like, again, tomatoes, that actually taste like tomatoes, was, you know, it's a real eye opener to sometimes see what real produce is supposed to taste like, it's supposed to look like. The other thing is that I think even when you dine at restaurants, one of the things I teach, you know, my followers is my readers and whatever, is know when to say, you know, I'm not hungry for the next bite. Not when I'm full, but I'm just not hungry for the next bite. It looks good. I could finish it, you know, on a bet. I could finish it, but why? I want to. And the other thing we did a lot, when we go out to dinner, is we walked to and from dinner. So we might walk 1.5 miles to dinner and 1.5 miles home.
Exactly.
So you have to not only think about what, you know, do you want that full dessert because you're going to have to walk home, but also, you know, in the act of walking home, you're burning off a little bit of the carbs of the dinner. But again, as a lifestyle, that's why we like it so much. We go to France every year for at least 2 months, and we settle into a routine. I talked about routines earlier. I could not travel to a place where I didn't have a routine and stay more than 5 days. But once I have a routine, I could stay, you know, for a long time, because it's like, I know what I'm going to do. It's part of my life. People ask me, well, you know, you were in Europe for 4 months this year. What's what was your favorite thing? I'm like, my favorite thing was identifying that there was no one favorite thing. My favorite thing was recognizing that every day was precious in and of itself and offered up a whole new set of experiences.
Yeah, nice, nice. Okay, so this would be a great segue into telling us more about Peluva, which is where'd you come up with that name?
So there's not a lot of names available in shoes that are cute that haven't already been taken, right? So
Right.
we knocked around a number of ideas. We wanted a name that sounded sort of elegant, a little bit European,
Mm-hmm.
and Peluva, Peluva, and it comes from pe, foot, and luva, which means glove. So it's foot glove in Portuguese. Now,
Mm.
it's these are five-toed shoes. So these are minimalist shoes. They have separate compartments for your toes because we're a big fan of what we call individual toe articulation, being able to step off of uneven surfaces and allow your toes to move and the small muscles of your feet to engage and become stronger. The soles of these are fairly thin. We have enough to cushion you so you could walk on, and I spent days walking 6, 8, 10 miles just on concrete with these minimalist shoes, but there's enough cushioning that it felt more like, you're walking on a pine needle wooded,
Yeah.
woodsy floor. And yet it's got zero drop, so there's no heel lift. It's just and there's no arch support, so you're literally having to. It's like a barefoot experience in these shoes. But unlike traditional five-toed shoes, which I think some people are familiar with,
Yeah.
these actually look pretty good. They look,
Yeah.
They look. I think.
Well, do you have a pair to show?
Oh yeah, for sure. So these are some of the performance shoes right here.
Nice.
And there's the five toes there.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's a kind of a fake sidewall. It's really only about 1 centimeter thick at the heel. That's
Wow.
so the white here is the cushioning, and it runs the whole length. And then we put these contact points here, which is more for tread and wear.
Okay.
This is this is my going out to dinner shoe. I wore this to a fancy restaurant the other night with some black jeans. Again, a fake sidewall, so it's quite thin. It's only a centimeter. The heel is only really a centimeter off of the ground. But again, it gives your toes the ability to move with whatever the change in surface of terrain is. And I've been living this way for 15 years. I've been wearing these sorts of minimalist shoes, but I never found any that I felt comfortable wearing in a public setting, with nice clothing. So we just decided it was time that. Now, having said that, I don't want people to run in these shoes. I just want you to walk in them all day and wear them to work and wear them to doing errands. And if the women are out with their Lulus, we got a beautiful pink linen one. It's just women are already loving it.
Okay.
And then when you go to play your sport, go to run your 10K, put on running shoes. Go play basketball, put on basketball shoes. Put whatever, play tennis shoes. But this is for like giving your feet. The primary selling feature is comfort. These are the most comfortable shoes you'll ever wear. It's gloves for your feet. So that's where we think we've hit upon something really cool here.
Well, no kidding. And again, like passion in the purpose, and it's gonna take off for sure. Like just like all your other endeavors. And like I went to the website. I'm not seeing any shop or cart there yet, but
no. So it's just a placeholder right now. We are we've been shooting product shots and models, and we're building the website right now. It should be up fully functional in about 2 weeks. I don't know when this is going to air, so maybe it'll be functional by the time.
Yeah, it probably will be functional. I don't know. I'll see if I boot you up.
But anybody who goes to peluva.com can just enter their email, and we'll shoot you the latest updates on where we are with that. And and the Instagram site is Wear Peluva, WEAR Peluva.
Okay.
my son, my 28-year-old son, is my co-founder in this, and we're having a blast working
Nice.
together. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. No, well, hopefully there's international shipping. Don't leave us Canadians out of this.
Is 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 Canada an international shipping situation?
Well, well, sometimes they say, "Oh yeah, you're right." No, you're right. I guess they're saying North
Yeah,
American or
yeah, yeah,
international. You're right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. Yeah.
I hope
So,
not.
no,
Jeez.
I know. Not since I last checked,
Yeah.
yeah, my map.
Either way, we'll kep you posted, and
Okay.
we'll get some to you somehow.
Okay. Okay. Sounds great. Well, how do you feel about me just asking some quick questions of you just to get to know you a little bit better and then let you go?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Favorite band?
Oh God. Well, okay. So that's a Led Zeppelin
Okay.
with an asterisk. The Police is my favorite band pretty much of all
Ah,
time. But because I think those three guys made more music in the short time they were together than anybody else. Which, by the way, the Doors did too. So it's going to be the Police, Led Zeppelin, and the Doors.
okay, cool. Okay. Yeah, you bring back memories for me too. Um, what's the best okay, so the best decade for of
For music,
musicians? Yeah.
70s.
70s. Okay, yeah. And well, I was going to ask you your favorite place that you visited in Europe, but you're saying like wherever there's routine was your favorite.
Yeah, I mean that's why we go there. It's Saint Jean Cap Ferrat. It's
Mm,
Cap Ferrat between Nice
okay.
and Monaco. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. Favorite dessert from your childhood?
Oh, from my childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because I was going to say Cherry Garcia ice cream, but that's in my 20s.
Well, okay, well,
Yeah.
yeah, you're a
Uh,
child. You're a child.
yeah. I mean, otherwise,
I was thinking something mom made.
God, it was probably brownies with ice cream on it.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
A classic. A
Yeah.
classic. Well, I'm wondering about your favorite state, United States.
Well, Florida.
Florida it is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you were born in Maine, you
Yeah.
lived a good part of your life in California, and then
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're very happy there.
Very happy in Florida. Every state has its pluses and minuses. I think the Big Sur coast of California might be the prettiest real estate in the world.
Mm.
I think that Maine, the rocky coast, the rock-bound coast of
Mhm.
Maine, has pretty things to appeal if you pick the right 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's a
but
story of
on
my life.
balance, if you check off all the boxes, the people, the internationalness of it, the warm water, the sand, the music, which is really pretty cool down here, the art. We have Art Basel coming up soon.
Mm.
Restaurants galore, the tax environment, the business environment. I'm a huge fan of Florida. Don't tell anybody.
Okay.
We don't want them coming down here.
Okay, yeah, I know. And like for me, I was gonna say you're welcome in Manitoba anytime, except it'll will be that I'll be like, hey Mark, come now. Oh wait, Mark, no, wait, it's not a good time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
like you got to have that 2 week window where
exactly,
in the summer, unfortunately.
exactly.
So, one last question: what's the best part about being a granddad?
Well, this is the joke. I mean, it's being able to hand them back to the parents
Yeah.
and say that was wonderful. That was a really nice 3 hours. I got to go take a nap. No, it's just it's seeing, your progeny creating their own progeny. Seeing. Look, We opened this conversation with my interest in evolution and genetics and genomics, and to see this is
Mm,
humans are here to pass our genetic material along to the next generation. So to see yet another generation, it's a visceral, gratifying, almost indescribable experience. But
yeah,
I love being a grandparent.
yeah.
Yeah.
The little Mark. How many do you have?
Well, two right now, and we have
Okay.
a 3-year-old JJ, and then Kai is just turned 8 months.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Well, Mark, I'll let you go and play and do whatever you got going for the rest of your evening. But thanks so much for your time and
my pleasure.
keep on doing it. I look forward to seeing those shoes out in the market.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Luella. Thanks for having me on.
Bye-bye. Thanks once again for joining me on another great episode of I Think I Can podcast. If you liked it, please subscribe below so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And until next week, treat each day like it was your last, because each new day is a privilege that we shan't take for granted. Cheers and have a great week. Bye-bye.